$450 for the Switch 2 console and $80 for Switch 2 games? Nintendo fans and gamers in general are losing their minds over these price tags for the Nintendo Switch 2. But is it really as outrageous as it seems? I'm going to show you something that changed my perspective quite dramatically. The actual inflation-adjusted prices for Nintendo games throughout the years. Welcome to GameList Plus. I'm Josh, and today I'm asking, are $80 Switch 2 game prices really that bad? As a lifelong Nintendo player since the original NES days, I'm here to give you my opinion on Nintendo's upcoming Switch 2. I'll talk about the $80 price tag for games, break down the reality of old pricing versus new pricing, talk about some of the games that we're going to see in the first few months, the Switch 2 system and its hardware upgrades over the previous system. I'll tell you a little story about my nephew and his struggle to get his hands on the original Switch, and what Nintendo is doing this time around to fight the scalpers of the world. So let's get started with the inflation illusion. For context, inflation illusion is a cognitive bias where we tend to think about the value of money at face value rather than in real terms. Come with me all the way back in time to 1990. My sister and I both had shared the regular Nintendo Entertainment System, the very first home console that we ever had. We had both saved our allowance money for quite some time to combine efforts and buy Super Mario Bros. 3 for $49.99. That $50 in 1990 adjusted for inflation in 2025 is approximately $115. That was a lot of money for two kids to split back then, and I'm pretty sure my parents just filled the gap from the amount that we didn't quite have yet. Super Mario Bros. 3 was definitely a more expensive title, but other NES games in the late 1980s could effectively cost between $60 and $110 in today's money. And then in 1993, I bought my Super NES with my own hard-earned money for $200, which equals about $410 today. As the years progressed, prices stayed around $50 for Super Nintendo games until Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars was released in 1996 at $60, equating to about $120 in today's money. That really does bring into perspective the cost of stuff nowadays. It really is vastly different. It was more expensive back then. The Nintendo 64 era was even worse. Games like GoldenEye 007 launched at $70 in 1997, which is about $130 in today's money. Jumping forward to 2005, you could pick up Resident Evil 4 on GameCube for $50, which was about $81 in today's money, which is actually still a little bit more than the $80 price tag that some of the games on Switch 2 cost in 2025. If you're enjoying this video, this is the perfect time for you to hit that like button. It really helps my channel a lot. And also don't forget to hit subscribe so you can see all my upcoming videos. In the years since, Nintendo Wii games and Wii U games were around $50. The new standard became $60 for Switch games, all the way up until Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in 2023, which was released at a whopping $70. And now here we are in 2025 with the Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games costing $80. Upon release of the Switch, you can upgrade The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild and some other big titles for $10 more if you already own them. The giant release title Mario Kart World that got everyone upset in the first place is that top of the chart price, $80. Crazy thing is that a lot of the prices actually went down over the years, and now they're slowly arching back up to a higher level, so it's understandable for a certain degree of unhappiness with prices going back up in general. But not all games are going to cost $80 for the Switch 2. Many of the third-party games and smaller titles will still sit around $50 or $60, with budget options being even lower, and there will always be online sales, etc. The flagship Donkey Kong Bonanza is priced at $70, and it remains to be seen if Metroid Prime 4 will be $70 or $80, but I'm betting on $70. But these prices just seem a lot more than they really are. Expectations have just changed. Back in the day, you couldn't wait for a digital sale or buy a game at a deeply discounted price on Facebook Marketplace. You had to pay full price or just go without the game. Nowadays, we're used to frequent discounts and digital storefronts, so the idea of paying a full $80 up front does feel downright jarring. Doug Bowser, the head of Nintendo, made the point that games like Mario Kart World will have long-term value. And I have to agree, we'll probably still be playing Mario Kart World 8 years from now, near the end of the lifespan of the Nintendo Switch 2, just like we still play Mario Kart 8 to this day. Whereas games like Donkey Kong Bonanza or Metroid will play a lot for a while, and then we probably won't play it again for a long time, at least until they're remastered or re-released again in the future. And with the much more powerful hardware of the Switch 2, a lot of other awesome games are coming, like Hades 2, Split Fiction, Street Fighter 6, Elden Ring, Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hogwarts Legacy, Hitman, and even the newest Borderlands Borderlands 4 are coming to the handheld. The fact that we will finally be able to play all of these games properly in handheld form without buying a Steam Deck is genuinely exciting. And it's all because of the hardware. That $450 price tag for the Nintendo Switch 2 gets you a console with 10 times the graphical power of the original Switch. That is largely thanks to the custom NVIDIA chip featuring ray tracing and DLSS support. And those aren't just buzzwords, they actually translate to lighting that behaves much more realistically and AI-powered upscaling that makes games sharper without dragging the performance down. When the Switch 2 is docked and plugged into your TV, it outputs a native 4K, which is an achievement that even PS5 and Xbox Series X sometimes struggle to reach. Honestly, the display upgrades alone make a strong case for the price of the Switch 2. The new 7.9-inch LCD runs at 1080p with 120 refresh rate compared to the original 720p at 60 Hz refresh rate. That means smoother motion when playing fast-paced games like Mario Kart, plus HDR support when connected to a TV. Even the OLED model of the original Switch from 2021 that I absolutely love and still play doesn't offer this kind of improvement. It still has a 720p screen and lacks those high refresh rates that we're going to see on the Switch 2. Although I truly do wish that the Switch 2 had an OLED screen, but I would love to point out that just like the original Switch's release, there's a border around the edge of the screen on the Switch 2 that could easily be filled up with a bigger OLED screen in the future, which I am sure Nintendo has up their sleeve, and also means that I'll be spending even more money. Really, when it comes down to it, the first model of the Switch 2 is just phenomenal. It really does seem like Nintendo is doing almost everything right here, including backwards compatibility with almost all Switch titles released up to this point. Nintendo's not just charging more for the same thing, they're delivering hardware that can compete with current gen consoles by releasing games at the same time as them, while keeping the portable functionality that people absolutely love about the first Switch. Pretty much everything about it has been improved, and I'm sure we will still be playing Nintendo Switch 2 for at least another 8 years. As we all know, the original Nintendo Switch was a major hit back in 2017. My nephew AJ, who was 13 at the time, really wanted to get one when it came out. So he went all out and pounded the pavement of the neighborhoods around his house, putting signs up on mailboxes to get jobs mowing lawns, and he just worked super hard to save up the money to buy a Switch. I mean, he was truly on a mission. When the time came, he went with his mom to a variety of different stores, and each and every one just told him, "Sorry, we're out." AJ grew sadder and sadder with each and every sorry that he heard, to the point of being at the verge of tears. Finally, they had one stop left: Toys R Us. They went to the section where the system should be, and there were none. AJ was devastated. All that work, all that time spent, and that was their last shot. My sister decided to at least ask about it from one of the employees. She told the employee the story about AJ working so hard to get the money together and how they had tried to get their hands on the Switch. When she asked if they would get any more in stock anytime soon, he said, "You know what? I've been waiting for a story like this. I actually have one saved in the back." And AJ heard that and his eyes started welling up with tears. As it turns out, that was the store manager, and when he brought the Switch out for my nephew, he burst into joyful tears. When they were about to walk out, the manager took a picture of AJ with his Switch to feature on the store's Instagram page. So it turned out to be a rare happy ending for a very happy kid. Not all people were that lucky in 2017 with their Nintendo Switch because of all the scalpers buying up all the systems and selling them at incredibly inflated prices. This time around, Nintendo is trying something different with the Switch 2. Their new Priority Access program on their website specifically targets actual gamers rather than resellers. To qualify for buying a Switch 2 directly from Nintendo, you'll need two things: at least 12 months of Nintendo Switch Online membership and 50 hours of gameplay logged on your account as of April 2nd. 2025. So this isn't just about having money when pre-orders go live, it's about proving that you're part of the Nintendo community. While the system isn't perfect, since newer fans will get left out, it's one of the first times we've seen a console maker prioritize loyal players over whoever can just click the button the fastest. The invitation system works like this: eligible accounts get emailed a 72-hour window to buy directly from Nintendo's store. You can't just share the link either. Each qualifying account gets one shot at purchasing one console. Also, it seems like Nintendo has learned from the inventory mistakes of the past. Early reports suggest that they have manufactured twice as many Switch 2 units compared to the original Switch launch. And I remember hearing 2 years ago that part of the reason for delays of the Switch 2 is because they wanted to produce way more systems to basically flood the market. Doug Bowser, the head of Nintendo, did acknowledge that they are preparing for high demand, though he admitted it does remain to be seen if supply will meet the interest. The preparation really does matter though. The original Switch was nearly impossible to find for months, creating ideal conditions for price gouging. Hopefully the $450 price point itself will help deter scalpers. When consoles cost more upfront, the profit margins shrink for resellers. A $300 Switch could easily flip for $600 during shortages last time, but a $450 Switch 2 would need to sell for nearly $900 to offer the same percentage return. That high barrier makes bulk buying less appealing to scalpers, especially since Nintendo is doing their own system of getting people their own systems. So there'll be less people who are worried about getting their system because there will just be more available. The real test comes when we see how many regular players actually secure consoles before stock runs out. But between the loyalty requirements, increased production, and pricing strategy, your chances of buying a Switch 2 at retail price look better than any brand new console release in the last decade. When you look at everything together, the hardware improvements, the fair pricing compared to past consoles, backward compatibility, anti-scalper measures, the Switch 2's value makes a lot more sense. Nintendo isn't raising prices arbitrarily on their games, it really is a premium upgrade that fixes the original Switch's limitations, while keeping what worked. Between the $10 upgrade path and the loyalty program for real fans, it seems like Nintendo is actually trying to do right by its players. But that's just what I think. What do you think? Are you still upset about the pricing of the Switch 2 games at this point? Are you planning to buy a Switch 2 in 2025, or are you just gonna wait? Which games are you excited to finally play on the go? Cyberpunk 2077, Elden Ring? Let's talk about it in the comments below. While you're here, why don't you check out my list of the 10 best couch co-op games on the original Switch that you'll also be able to play on the Switch 2 right here. That is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Go try something new. I'll see you next time on GameList Plus.
You know, guys, it's nice playing with power, but this is better because now we're playing together.
Super together.
Uh-oh, he's doing a voice.